So if you like this video, like, subscribe, and hit the notification button for all the DecaDish videos that I do. I was compelled to make this video. I just got done watching episode 12 of season 2 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and I really was watching, I was kind of blown away by this episode, actually. I got almost PTSD from when I was on the show, game night specifically. It's just, it is real combat, and it is so emotionally draining, and you're hungover on top of it. It's a lot. And I was seeing how far these women were pushing themselves to try to tell the truth and not be hypocritical, and trying not to be hypocritical, trying to force themselves to sit in a really uncomfortable situation, where you want to leave, like you really want to walk out, and that the producers will get upset at this point in time. In the old days, there was definitely a feeling like you couldn't leave, but it wasn't as, I think, predominant as it is now, because the women know, like, you need to stay in the scene because you're being paid to stay in the scene. And so you have to really deal with some really difficult things, because if you don't, the producers aren't going to let you off the hook. So people know the game better now, and they want to keep their job, obviously. And so they put themselves through hell to do that by having to answer questions that they would never normally answer, and or face really bad, people talking shit. Now that said, I really got annoyed by Mary Cosby in this particular episode. And that is because I have, much like the women on the show, spoken to people who have been taken advantage of by Mary's church directly, and family members of Mary directly, on the Patreon and off the Patreon. So for me, I was really struggling inside when I saw Mary break down. And first she says that she's not God, but yet God is inside of her. Which, by the way, I don't think that's necessarily a bad belief system, but certainly it isn't if it's demonstrated in a way that everyone doesn't have God inside them, then it might be. And she didn't really clarify that point, whether she believes everyone has God inside them or just her. And I was wondering about that. I also didn't appreciate her calling Heather chubby. I've been called chubby on the show, and it really pissed me off. It's a really shitty thing to do, because certainly googly eyes shouldn't be talking. But now I want to say what really annoyed me. What really annoyed me about this episode was that Mary did not get born into her wealth and inherit it. She is putting out a claim that has already been disproven in a court. So I wanted to spend this time, I'm going to do 2 videos because I'm that motivated on this one. I wanted to spend the time to explain to you why she didn't inherit what the church in the way that she's saying. And then I'm in a separate one, like a part 2, I'm going to read you the Reddit that everyone alludes to. And a lot of people have read at this point, but I'm going to read it to you just in case. So Mary Cosby's grandma was called Big Mama, and she was the head of the church, and seemed to be a nice enough lady. There were no rumors surrounding Robert and Mary Cosby about Rosemary Cosby within the church. And what happened was Rosemary Cosby in 1997 passed away, actually quite suddenly. And I'm going to oversimplify how she died, but basically due to a heart issue. And this seemed funny to her 4 children, right? One of which is Mary's mom, because Big Mama seemed to be in really good health when she suddenly died. And what was also really strange is when the police officer went through her house in Florida, which is where Big Mama passed away, they did not find any bottles of medication that normally would be associated with high blood pressure or a bad heart. However, Robert Cosby stated that he believed that she had high blood pressure and had not been taking her medicine, which is maybe what led to her dying. Now, something to note is that Mary from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City's mother, who was Big Mama's daughter, requested a court to exhume the body in 1999. So what does that mean? Well, it means that Mary's mom believed that Robert Cosby may have done something bad to Big Mama, her mother. Yeah, and caused that death somehow. That's what she believed. And so she requested a court to exhume the body and do an autopsy in 1999, the result of which I don't know, but I can say this, that the body from 1997 to 1999 would be badly decomposed and it would be very difficult to know if there had been some wrongdoing at that point. However, that's still sort of out in the ether, what the answer was on whether or not they could figure out from that decomposed body how she died, if it indeed was from a heart issue. So now I'm going to tell you how, in fact, Mary Cosby truly inherited Big Mama's stuff. And the way that went down, so you guys know, is that when Mama died in 1997, she was, of course, married to Mary's grandpa, right, who's Robert Cosby. And within a very short period after she passed away, he actually stepped in and requested to be the executor of the estate, which he was granted the right to do because he was her husband at the time. And a woman by the name of Annie Louise Johnson was CFO of the church and some other companies, like a mortgage company, which Big Mama owned. And they, it's alleged, started moving assets. So Big Mama's daughter, Mary's mom, starts to look at the documentation of what is in the estate of Big Mama, and she notices some big things glaringly missing, such as commercial property and cars and mortgage company, jewelry, houses, and businesses, restaurants, furnitures, a radio station, art, probably a lot of couture like Mary. Anyway, it's not seemingly in the estate. And so she's like, where the hell is it? And so that's what triggers Big Mama's children to know something's wrong, that the stuff is not, listed as part of the estate. So they go into court and they request an injunction on him being executor of the estate because they believe that along with this CFO lady, Annie Louise Johnson, that they're moving assets from Big Mama's name estate to Robert, which is not the intention of what Big Mama wanted. Now, if you want to know how I know that because Mary's mom from Salt Lake City, she filed a claim in the courts saying that some quitclaim deeds had been forged by Robert Cosby pretending to be Big Mama in order to quickly move assets like property from her name into his. And further, the people who notarized those quitclaim documents actually did not witness Big Mama signing them, which was what they're supposed to do. And so as a result of that, he was able to fraudulently move assets from the estate to his name. Okay? And Mary's mom won in 2 cases towards this goal of showing that these documents were fraudulent. Number 1, she won at the Utah Supreme Court level that in 2005, which basically the Supreme Court forced the district court, who had originally heard the case, to allow expert forensic testimony about fraudulent signatures to be entered in as evidence in the district court proceeding. And that evidence was so compelling from an expert that the district court won in favor of Mary's mom, that indeed there had been fraud done on these deeds. And both Annie Louise Johnson and Robert Cosby were told to pay $1.2 million in damages. Now I need to bring this back to Mary and how she inherited this money. So what happened was Robert, when back in the beginning, when they first saw that assets were being moved improperly and things were not showing up in the estate that should show up in the estate, Big Mama's daughter, Mary's mom, got a restraining order against Robert Cosby being the executor of the estate. And 1 month after that happened, Mary Cosby married him. Yep. And she was 25 and he was 45 years old. So in a way, it's, I guess, a time of reckoning. Mary should be familiar with the time of reckoning. What I believe happened is I believe Mary married Robert to make sure she got the inheritance from her grandmother. This is speculation. This is what I believe. I believe that because she married him 1 month after he was restrained from transferring assets or doing anything with the assets that Big Mama had. I also speculate that Mary and Robert saw it as a way to take the money away from her mother and her uncle and the other 4 children that was Big Mama's children. And Mary, would then get control of the money with Robert, and that's how they would do it. And then they would use the fact that Mary was obviously Big Mama's pride and joy because it was her granddaughter, to take over the church and keep that income coming in. All I know is that Mary certainly did not inherit the estate in the way that she's depicting it on the television show. And I also know many people who do believe truly Mary is a cult leader. And this Cameron gentleman is not the only one who mortgaged his home, allegedly. Other members of her church did too. And all of the rumors that are being whispered on this season 2 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City have been said by people on YouTube that are family members, and testimony from people that have gone to the church. And people are legitimately afraid of Mary because they think they'll go to hell if they go up against her. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's saying that somehow when Jen Shah went up against her, that's why the indictment happened, and taking claim to that. She should really table those crocodile tears because some of us see right through them. So in a part 2, I'm going to finally on YouTube read the entire Reddit. And I'm going to allow you guys to judge for yourself. This was written by a practitioner. I also invite you to please join the Patreon and go listen, I think it is, to episode 10 with Dan Cosby, Mary Cosby's cousin, who was also in her church, and listen to what he says directly from the horse's mouth in regards to Mary Cosby. And I hope these things will give you some insight about this woman, because Lord knows I certainly don't want her to get a bigger platform from Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. And I feel a personal responsibility in getting the information out so that just doesn't happen. Okay? So there you have it. Mwah.